Well, hello, friends. I'm excited to be back with you all on yet again another Beyond Compliance. My name is Jim Albright, and today we are going to dig into why safety should be a primary focus for all teams within your manufacturing business. And we're going to hear some real-world examples of how doing this will successfully help retain skilled workers, ensure product quality, delight your customers, and of course, drive more revenue. Now, for all the new folks joining us today, we're very glad you're here. The Beyond Compliance series is designed to bring industry leaders and experts directly to you to share their perspectives on the influences, challenges, and impacts that are shaping process manufacturing today. Now, we aim to provide proven guidance that you can use to change and evolve your manufacturing processes or technologies and outcomes. And the best part is you have a chance to take part in the discussion by sending in your comments and questions. Now, in case you missed it, this series is brought to you by Safety Chain. Safety Chain's digital plant management platform is trusted by thousands of process manufacturers to unite their plant production and quality teams together in order to maximize throughput and yield, ensure quality and compliance, and optimize labor and productivity. Check them out. All right, before we get started, just got to get through some housekeeping items. First, attendee mics are muted. But as mentioned before, please do submit your comments and questions at any time during the session because we are leaving room at the end for some Q&A. And yes, this session is now being recorded, so everybody who registers will get the link and the recording of the presentation later today, so keep a lookout. All right, I am very excited. We have a newcomer today on Beyond Compliance, Daryll Bryant. Daryll has been leading operations teams, including holding plant management roles for over 20 years, and has put his insights on transforming business culture to achieve plant-wide success into his firm, DKB Industries, as well as his book, Engage, Lead, Deliver, and in his many speaking opportunities across the country. So Daryll, I know you're going to share some incredible stories today, and I'm really excited to learn more about this winning with excellence system that you've been championing as it applies to obviously building out and improving a culture of safety. But because it's your first time in Beyond Compliance, would you mind spending a little moment to tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for attending. So I've spent over 25 years in operations for food and beverage manufacturers. I spent the last 15 years in executive level roles for Diageo, Pepsi, M&M Mars, Boston Beer Company. And then I've transitioned into consulting where I travel globally to consult food and beverage companies and also perform roles as a leadership coach for executive level leaders, frontline leaders within organizations to really support their ability to change the operations performance. I'm also an author and keynote speaker. I authored the book Engage, Lead, Deliver, Leadership Tenets to Unlock the Collective Genius of Your People, because I saw that there was a gap in industry of applying leadership tools to frontline leaders to help them lead the strategy that the executive teams will put in place. And so the goal of that book is really to spark new leaders, as I call them, and to get them to buy in and really embrace the tool of being a leader within an organization.
Awesome. All right. So how do we continue to grow performance? That's what we're going to start with here today.
Yes, and what I share with leaders when I speak is it all starts with safety. The goal to drive performance is to engage the organization, and the best way to engage an organization is to create a safe workplace, a safe culture.
Okay. Makes sense. Let's dive in.
So what I'd like to start with my journey into learning about safety. I call it, there was an intersection between safety and leadership. I started off my career, I studied engineering, mechanical engineering, and my first role, I was put into a management position to lead a team of about 30 production operators in a food manufacturing site for M&M Mars. Nothing about engineering school had prepared me for the task of leadership. I was great at solving problems. I was great at doing high-level math calculations or thermodynamics analysis. But this task of leading people, I soon learned there was nothing about a math equation could really teach you how to engage and connect with people. So as I was spending my time walking this road of leadership, applying what my superiors wanted me to put in place, I was really struggling with finding out what is my role in this leadership capability, because the employees that I was tasked to lead, most of them had 15 years of experience or more. Some of them were old enough to be my parents. They definitely knew more about the process of making candy than I would ever learn. And initially, I thought my job was just to walk around and tell everybody what to do. Because I had the engineering degree, I figured I was the better problem solver because I'd went to university. And I was met with a lot of obstacles and resistance early on, and I found myself struggling. And one day, as I was walking the site to do my normal site task and checks, I intersected with safety and creating a safety culture. Next slide. So my job was to lead the manufacturer of Snicker bars. I love Snicker bars. My family loves Snicker bars. And it was really a dream job. It was like working in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in real life. I had the opportunity to manage the chocolate making process, the caramel making process, the nougat making process. And we were making Snickers for about 70% of the United States. But there was a constant problem that we had been having on the belts that carries the Snicker bars down to the wrapping machines. And the belt would jam and all of the candy, just imagine about 5 block long conveyor carrying candy. When the belt jammed, the candy would all pile up on the belt, and we would have maybe, I don't know, a third of a ton of candy on the floor that people would have to get shovels to clean up. So it created a real mess. And when there was a challenge between operation and maintenance around whose fault was it that this belt was jamming. And the maintenance team was telling, and I ran the operations team. The maintenance team was telling the operations team, it's because you're wiping the roller down with silicone, because sometimes chocolate residue would get on the rollers under the belt. And so the thought was that operations was wiping the conveyor or the roller with silicone, and that was causing the belt to slip and causing a jam. So as I was walking, I saw 2 mechanics standing looking at the belt, and I saw a bottle of what I thought was silicone spray. And so I'm thinking to myself, aha, I found the culprit. It's really the mechanics that are spraying the belt. And when I walked up, before I could ask them, I saw a gentleman on the floor that I needed to talk to that morning I was looking for, and he took off running down the factory in a dead sprint. Now, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and when somebody starts running, I run too. So I didn't know why he was running, but I took off running after him. And as I took off running after him, when he stopped, I said, "Hey, why are we running?" And he says to me, "The candy's jamming up and I'm trying to stop it before it creates a big mess." So as I involved myself with helping them unpile the candy so it wouldn't be a big mess, someone came back to me and said, "Hey, Daryll, I think one of the mechanics has his arm caught in the machine on the other end." And I said, "No, that's impossible. I just left from there and they were just standing looking at the belt." And he said, "No, I think you better get up there. I think somebody's hurt." Well, when I ran back to see the 2 mechanics that were standing there, one mechanic arm was caught in between the 2 machine rollers, and the roller was essentially trying to eat his arm. It was just pulling his arm in inch by inch. His partner was trying to disengage the roller to keep it from crushing his arm. They had pulled the safety cord to stop the machine. And I was in shock. As a young leader, I was in shock seeing this man's arm being devoured by the machine. And I heard the gentleman whose arm was caught in the machine, I heard him whisper, "Whatever you do, don't cut the belt." And when he said that, it snapped me out of my shock. He said it again, "Please don't cut the belt." In this moment of his arm being devoured in the machine, he cared more about saving the company's property than he did about getting his arm out of the machine.
That's
And in that
amazing.
instance, I knew my purpose as a leader. I said, cut the belt, tear the machine apart, do whatever you have to do, but get his arm out of that machine and get it done now. And the mechanics began to cut the belt. They removed his arm. He was taken to the hospital. Luckily, his arm was saved. He did have some nerve damage. But when I walked in the hospital later that day to see him, his wife stopped me at the door and said, "I understand that you're his manager." And I answered, "Yes." And she said, "I want to know how my husband could go to work to make candy and end up in a hospital bed with his arm crushed." And I couldn't answer that question. And so in that moment, I knew my role was to create an environment where we're keeping people safe. Next slide.
That's an incredible story. Incredible story.
So I formed the belief that no one should ever get hurt at work. And in that moment, I didn't realize it, but later on, I thought to myself, my job was to ensure that our systems don't fail, because it's the aspect of systems failing that create injuries. See, I was so into proving to maintenance that it was their fault, not my team's fault, that I wasn't leveraging tools, continuous improvement tools, to really partner with them to sit down and solve a problem, because we kept having these intermittent failures. That's the first sign that there's a risk of someone having physical safety or physical harm brought to them when systems intermittently fail. Our words have impact. Oftentimes, as leaders, we repeat what the executive team shares with us from the strategy. In our case, it was driving performance, improve the processes, improve the systems, reduce costs, reduce downtime. And when I walked to the machine and the gentleman's arm was being crushed, he began repeating those words that he had probably heard me and my manager colleagues say each day. And so his thought was, yes, my arm is in danger, but I don't want to hurt productivity by having to cut the belt and destroy the belt, because it will create too much downtime. I'm assuming he may have been thinking. Incidents are our opportunity to learn. Whenever there's an incident, you don't want to experience what I experienced. The incident is a flag to pull a team together to put continuous improvement in place to find out the root cause, no matter how small it is. Oftentimes we allow small incidents to occur because we're waiting to solve the big problem. But when we solve the few, it helps us ensure the big problems doesn't come. I also learned that day at that intersection that my job as a leader wasn't to walk around and tell everyone what to do. They knew how to make candy. They knew more about making candy than I would have probably ever learned. I learned that my job was really to engage leaders, to engage people. And trust me, I learned you can't engage people when someone gets hurt on your watch. And engagement enables the productivity. After the accident, no one wanted to work the rest of the day. And why would they? They were concerned about the mechanic who had his arm crushed, because not only was he their work colleague, but he was also their friend. And people don't want to see their friends get hurt at work, because the next thing they're thinking, wow, this could have happened to me. What if this had happened to me? And so so now productivity is lost when people get hurt. Next slide. Paul O'Neill is a former leader and CEO of Alcoa. He took over the reins of Alcoa in 1987. And one of the things that Paul O'Neill did when he took over Alcoa, his first meeting, not too far from Wall Street, was to tell the Wall Street investors that the first thing he was going to do was fix Alcoa's safety issues. Now, the investor community knew that Alcoa had the best safe working practices of any company within the aluminum industry. But Paul O'Neill was trying to spark a fight. He was trying to win the hearts and minds of the people within the organization, because he knew that if he just went with the same old cliches of we're going to improve margins, we're going to improve revenues, we're going to increase productivity, we're going to reduce downtime, that it's hard to get people to engage around those things. And so what Paul O'Neill decided to do was he decided to get everybody focused on one item, and that item was correcting safe work practices. His quote, having a habitual excellent leadership is about using every single instance of anything going wrong as a basis for organizational learning. And he believed that if he could get all of his managers and all of the teams within Alcoa to focus on safety, then the effect of that would be the organization would solve problems that impacted every aspect of the organization. Next slide. Often when I talk with leaders about safety, there's a misunderstanding of what creating a safety environment looks like. It's really the responsibility of everyone in the organization to create a safe environment. And at the top of the pyramid with a safe environment, it's emotional safety. People have to know that they have the ability to call out things that may not be going right. They have to know that they can, if they point something out, that they won't receive a negative impact as a result. They won't be reprimanded because they called out something that's not right. Because if that environment isn't there of emotional safety, people will be quiet, and when they're quiet, leadership won't see where the opportunities for improvement are. And then the next level of the pyramid is personal safety. If you've ever been around an organization where people get hurt, you can look at their bottom line numbers and see gaps. Because when people get hurt, they don't engage. And when people don't engage, they don't improve the environment around them. And that lack of improvement leads to poor performance. So safety is really connected to the organization's goals. And then personal safety, if you have emotional safety, if you have an environment of personal safety, it leads to product safety. Some of the best organizations, if all of those things are intact, the people in the organization will protect the brand, they will protect the products, and ensure that the products are safe for the consumers. Next slide. So emotional safety. Often people don't see the risk. It's the role of leaders to create a culture where anyone has the power to call out an unsafe work practice. In my roles, I would always go in and I would tell the operations team, if you see something that's not right, stop it. You have the ability to pull a cord. Even if you're not a manager, anybody in the organization can pull a cord and stop unsafe work. In one organization, an associate was walking on the outside of the manufacturing plant, saw a contractor up on the roof. The contractor was planning to paint the side of the wall. The associate asked the contractor how they were going to do the work. The contractor said, I'm just going to lean over the edge and I'm just painting this top rim. And the associate stopped them, came and engaged the management team, told them what she had saw. And the management team asked the contractor to come down, and we reviewed the work and put in the safety mitigations, had him wear a harness and use all the proper tools so that he can work safe. When you create that culture, now if you have a team of 500 people, now instead of having maybe 40 pairs of eyes looking for unsafe work practices, you'll have 1,000 pairs of eyes looking for, or 500 pairs of eyes, I should say, looking for unsafe work practices. So give the people the okay to slow down and double check. Next slide. For personal safety, the opportunity is to really go from reactive to strategic to ensure people don't get hurt. I was very reactive in that story I shared. The candy was building up. My team was being blamed. I reacted. I went back to the maintenance team and I was pointing fingers. My job as a leader was to really be strategic. This is a reoccurring problem. What teams do I need to engage to help really solve the problem? Maybe I need the engineering team. Maybe I need the manufacturer of the conveyor to come together with the maintenance team and with our associates so we could figure out what the root cause. We found the root cause of the problem later. And the root cause was really simple, and it was definitely not worth a man's arm being damaged. And oftentimes, that's what we do in reactive organizations. We wait until the problem gets big enough and has a large enough impact, usually around personal safety, that we put all of our energy into solving it. The more people we can get involved early, the better the chances of mitigating the risk and ensuring a risk never occurs. Next slide. Organizations that have adopted a culture of safety will protect the brand. And sometimes we don't see that there's an interconnection between quality and the work with safety risk. And safety risk, it extends all of those pyramids. I like to share another story when I was working with M&M Mars. One night I came in as the leader and we had the metal detectors that are there to ensure that there's no metal shavings in the Snickers bar. The metal detectors were kicking off every bar that was coming off the wrapping machine. And so as I'm walking in to take over the shift, I see the lights going. I was told that the metal detector started kicking off intermittently. And so my job was to figure out what was causing it. In this case, the mechanics that were working on the machine said to me, well, a lot of times the sensitivity of the machine can be off just from the vibrations. And so we may be able to just adjust the sensitivity to stop the candy from jumping off. And I thought to myself, because now I had this focus on safety risk, this was after the accident had occurred, I thought to myself, well, what if it isn't What if it isn't the sensitivity? What if there's really metal in the candy bars? I have kids that eat this candy. What if it hurts one of them? What if it hurts other kids within our community? And I said, no, my job is to validate and verify that there's no risk. So I went to our quality documents. I read through the quality documents around potential safety metal contamination, and I pulled the team together. I told them to stop the production process. We're not producing any candy until we understand if this is a real risk or not. I called my executive leaders because I was on a night shift. I didn't get many answers or any answers. So I just pulled the team from the different areas, walked through with the quality record. Here's what the quality record says. How should we prioritize to break the process apart? Here's what we're going to do in each area. The team was giving me ideas of what they could go check. We'd meet, they go check, they come back and review what they found. We didn't make any product that night. And when a line is down, it creates a significant cost for the company. So it was a real challenge for me as a leader, as a young leader, to make that decision. So I went and read our company's value system. And one of the value systems says, quality is everybody's job. The consumer is our boss. And I connected what I was doing to that value system and said, it's my job tonight not to try to push candy out the door, but it's my job to make sure we don't have any risk of metal. We found all night running through these checks and following the quality system line by line, we found that there was a rework conveyor where a rework mixer where a bearing had fell, which allowed the shaft to shave against the housing, and it was creating small shavings, but we were only adding rework into the product at like a 1% rate. So had I not stopped that, this problem could have gone on for weeks before we really knew, and would have caused recalls all over North America. And that's the power when you connect safety to habitual excellence. You create an environment for product and customer service excellence. No product was made that night when the executive team came in. I told them I didn't make any product tonight. The goal was usually to make 70 to 100 tons of Snickers bars. I said, however, I stopped the safety risk and no product is on hold and nothing went out the door. Next slide. So the job, oftentimes as leaders, we're forced to be goal oriented, and we should. Our role is to help the organization achieve. But too many times I've seen leaders so focused on the goals that they begin to try to skip steps and have this pressure of, should I shut down this line like I did because I'm going to miss tonight's performance goals? So I would say tie back to performance targets, not just the goals. See, my goal was to make 70 to 100 tons of product that night, but my goal was also to have no unsafe incidents and to have no bad product go out the door. And so oftentimes when we look at creating a system, we don't let the goals alone drive us. And those goals flow from having the right culture. Because I was so in tune with ensuring that there was no risk to our consumers, my team engaged with me. And I told you those associates had 15, 20, 25 years of experience. They shared their experiences with me to help solve the problem and pinpoint where the issue was. If I had been walking around still trying to tell everybody what to do, there's no way I could have thought through everything and solved those problems. So there's a real power of engagement and having 30 to 40 people in tune with what the issue is and helping to solve it. Culture catches those issues closer to where they are made and helps ensure customer satisfaction, and it also ensures product integrity. Allow the system to flow from your culture. Next slide. So safety is everyone's job, and you can impact any level on the pyramid by just focusing on creating a safe environment. Sometimes this concept gets a little lost with teams that don't work on the manufacturing floor. Sometimes office associates may not see where their role is in creating safety. And what I would always share with those team members, that you can always be a fresh set of eyes and just walk the factory floor at some frequency and ask questions. Because sometimes the team that do the work every day, they're dealing with issues that they've just accepted because they work there and live there. And so sometimes as those fresh set of eyes, you asking questions may point out something that everybody had just overlooked. And as a leader, though, you have to create the cultural environment where people can move from their work area to another work area to purposely look out for where unsafe work practices can be occurring. But I'll share another story that was told to me by a friend. During 9/11, this friend worked in the World Trade Center, the tower that fell, and they had an office manager that would routinely call for a fire drill where the teams would have to stop their work, travel down. I think they were on something like the 40th or 50th floor. They would have to get on the elevators, go downstairs, or walk down the steps, I should say. They would have to walk down the steps. And he said, as they were walking down the steps, they would always complain, like, why are we doing this? This makes no sense. We never have an issue. Why do we have to stop and walk down all of these steps? But he said the leader would constantly do these random fire drills. And then one day, 9/11 happened. And this manager told me that leader's team all were removed from the building safely because they had this constant practice, this constant habit of being excellent and not waiting for a problem to occur and then trying to figure it out. And so that's what I ask you to share with your teams. Create the habit and the practice of being excellent about safety. You can connect a lot of reasons to that people can buy into, and that habitual habit will help unlock where problems could be and also help create team engagement. Next slide. Now, people may ask, I have these goals and I have to get this business done. I don't see how safety can connect to me delivering on my goals. And I would say it helps you build a highly engaged workforce, right? With a team of people all using their skills and their talents to solve a problem with the right level of harmony and spirit of connection. I haven't seen a problem that exists in organizations that those teams can't solve. Employees that know they work for a company that has integrity will go the extra mile because they see themselves as brand managers, even though they never work in marketing. They share the products with their community. They share with their friends. They're proud. So when they come to work, that pride harnesses solving the problems that generates the results that the leaders are asking for. And then uncommon problems are solved by what I call uncommon ingenuity. And in my book, I give the term, it's your job as a leader to unlock the collective genius of your people. And that starts with safety, creating that engagement. Next slide.
Yeah,
Well,
that's our goal.
the Paul, before I go back, I like to tell when Paul O'Neill started with this focus on safety, he was the laughing stock from the Wall Street executives. You can go back and read those early articles that news reporters wrote saying that this CEO has lost his mind. He's not talking about increasing margins. He's not talking about growing revenues. He's talking about keeping people safe. I believe Paul O'Neill held the reins of Alcoa from 1987 to 1999. When he took the reins and gave his safety message, Alcoa had revenues of $3 billion. When he left in 1999 and had harnessed that culture of safety throughout the organization, Alcoa's revenues were $27 billion. He grew revenues 9 times by being the top leader and having the entire organization connected around safety at a company that was seen in the industry as having the best safety record already when he took over. There was more to do. And I would challenge each of you, where is the more in your organization? Because it's an ongoing process, a journey that you never really achieve, but you keep people safe on your path. All right, thank you, and I'll open for questions.
No, Daryl, you've got some great stories. I mean, when you're telling these stories, probably bringing back those feelings of anxiety and just what do we do next? And, as you said earlier, it's about being able to understand the potential risks as to the best of your ability, making sure that everybody else has that same understanding and practices it and believes in it. And that's easier said than done. There's conflict between meeting your daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly KPIs versus making sure that you work in a safe environment, that everybody's contributing to that everybody feels enabled to call things out, stop the line as needed, even if it means not meeting your KPIs or even not meeting your batch orders on time. That's risky business, right? So how do you get people's minds from line worker to CEO and make safety that number one priority, as in Paul O'Neill's example, that ultimately leads to better quality, better customer satisfaction, and obviously more revenue?
No, that's a great question. And it's something that I dealt with as a leader, as a plant manager, as a vice president of manufacturing. And it's questions I get as I'm doing consulting in organizations globally. Here's what I believe. Your leader's job is to make sure you have great people on your team. Spend your energy hiring talented people. And when you bring those talented people into the organization, you have to enable them to be able to leverage those talents towards the tasks that lead to the goals that you're tasked with. But here's why I call it unlocking the collective genius. I believe everybody has a genius within them. But as a leader, you have to get people to agree to lend their genius to you. And to do that, there has to be some consistency from you. You can't say safety matters today, but tomorrow it's get everything out at all costs when somebody's pointing out a risk that could lead to a fatal injury. And so your words and actions have to be consistent. And leaders, we have to operate with courage and understand that we may miss the goal today, but today will build on a connection of activities and events that will help us reach the monthly goal or the quarterly goal. And why? Why will that happen? Because as people see you're being consistent, they will want to do more. They will want to lend you their genius. And when you bring the problems to them, they will want to partner with you in a way that will create something that you really can't explain. You just have to experience it. And it only comes from their belief that you care about them in such a way that you won't allow them to be at risk emotionally, physically, and you have integrity around the product that they're making, and you will stop something that can put that integrity at risk. Had I allowed those Snicker bars to go out, people would have gone home that night that do the work and thought to themselves, what if there's metal in the candy? My little niece comes over every weekend and I'm giving her candy. What if there's really metal? So you don't want people to have this conflict. And it starts by having this commitment to safety. They will go the extra mile for you, and they will create greatness on your behalf. And Paul O'Neill is proof. 3 billion to 27 billion, all while talking about safety.
Yeah.
Not just talking about it, implementing.
Right, right. So you brought up this idea of tying KPIs to performance targets, and you said like, yeah, your culture, your vision of at Mars was no bad product goes out, right? The customer is the boss. So are there any tools or tricks that manufacturers can use to kind of illustrate, even if it's visually or through regular coaching, how you can get those KPIs tied to performance targets?
Right. So what I share with organizations when I partner with them as just improving to help them improve their business is there needs to be mission, vision, and values that everyone can connect to. And the foundation of those mission, vision, and values is safety. Safety has to be at the foundation of that because it has to hold everything else up. And then continuous improvement, excellence in the work that we do, those are pillars that foundation of safety supports. And as a leader, I always believe that if I can connect my actions back to our value systems, then I'm confident talking to any executive at any level in the organization around why I took the decision and the path I took. If our mission, vision, and values are right, and I connect my decisions to those, I should be moving the team in the right direction when it matters. And it's not a question of having this environment of safety or results. It really does lead to the results.
Right, and this again ties back to leadership, but you mentioned get people to lend their genius to you. How does that relate to somebody that doesn't work on the factory floor, right? Somebody that works in, I don't know, IT or even HR.
Right. I think engagement encompasses the entire organization as a leader. Again, I said with that Mars story, I could have taken the ability to partner with other departments to help us solve the problems. So I think it's before a problem ever happens or arises, it's walking around making connections with people, getting to know their names, getting to know something about them personally, sharing information about yourself, really being vulnerable. There may be things that you don't understand about IT, and you partner with them to learn from them. Because sometimes leaders, we project this image that because we're the leader, we're the know-alls and end-all. And when you go and partner with people that could be very junior and you share that you need support in learning something that's their expertise, now they want to connect with you more. And so as you're walking around and you're making these positive connections and you're just greeting people every day with a positive attitude, maybe inviting them into some cross-functional meetings to get their perspective, it creates the environment for when there's a crisis, they will want to partner with you and share with you what they know.
So obviously getting in touch with the human side of the workplace, right? I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but it's really just getting to understand the day in the life of your peers and really kind of relating, what's important to you and them relating to you, what's important to them. And there's going to be some synergy. So this goes back to when you first started your introduction. You said you work with frontline leaders to help fill gaps. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because again, I know a lot of people on this call and others that come to Beyond Compliance. This is a constant struggle, right? We see challenges firsthand. We're the ones that are struggling. We're the ones that are really scrambling, looking for help. And yes, we have continuous improvement mechanisms and other things that just drive performance and drive other initiatives that we're working towards. But sometimes there's lack of visibility at the very, very top. And I know this whole presentation is all about how leadership needs to own the safety first culture. So can you help us all understand how frontline leaders can cascade this initiative, this priority to business leaders and have them sort of all align around this idea?
Yes. So my book, Engage, Lead, Deliver, I created a training course for frontline leaders, specifically to help them understand their role of managing the mission, vision, and values of the organization, and what I call the three pillars, with safety being the foundation of the pillars. Here's what I learned as a frontline leader. Oftentimes, I didn't understand what my real role and purpose was, as I told you, until I walked into that safety problem. And and I didn't know how to engage the team. And so when leaders can't engage their followers, it's very hard for the organization to reach its strategic goals. See, the executive team can do a great job creating strategy, but oftentimes that strategy fails between the executive team and the frontline operators or teams that actually do the work. And usually those frontline leaders are at risk. They're the ones with all of the conflict around, I got to hit this goal, but somebody told me this is unsafe. If I stop the machine, is that the right? And so there's always this internal conflict. And those leaders really need to be trained early on for how to manage through that conflict. Oftentimes, organizational training focuses on mid-level leaders and above, and frontline leaders walk around unsure, and they don't know what they don't know. And so by teaching them how to create a safe work culture, by teaching them how to engage, you're now teaching them how to unlock the collective genius of your people. And when the strategy comes in, they can have a better dialogue with associates. And even when associates don't agree with some aspects of the strategy, they'll be willing to buy in because they have this engaged connection with their leader. So I tell organizations, I don't care how large they are, the frontline leaders are the critical aspect to an organization's performance, because they're right where the work happens, and they can be the reason that the goals are exceeded or the goals are missed because of their ability to understand how to partner with people and how to create this surf work environment, which creates the culture of performance and product integrity.
And that is a noble thing, my friend. So tell me a little bit more about this winning with excellence system. So I know this is part of your business, and this is something that you've kind of used as the way that you coach people beyond just looking at goals. So can you give us some like a quick overview of what you mean by winning with excellence, and again, why it's a system rather than a series of goals?
Yeah, so DKB Industry and our partners, we've created a system that's based on what I call the four principles of manufacturing, or the four P's. And it's people, precision, performance, profit. And under the people aspect, it's around create an engaged work environment. And so I go in and I coach organizations on how to implement these four P's into their operation. And I teach them how it will enable them to solve problems. And we created what we call $1 million challenge. where we tell organizations we can help you save $1 million, sometimes more, but we guarantee that we will deliver 5 times return on what they spend on our services. So the first P is around people, and that's where the safety pillar comes. Because if you create this culture of safety and we help managers implement that culture, it allows people to create engagement. And we teach about how to create engagement. Precision, we use tools around data analytics and other continuous improvement tools to really get precise on where the problems exist and helping the team use continuous improvements, operational excellence, problem solving tools based on the lean manufacturing principles to really apply those tools to problems with the support of an engaged team. And then that leads to performance because as the team has identified problems, prioritize which ones will have the biggest impact on the organization strategy. Now, as they begin to implement the system while we're coaching them, it helps to unlock those performance targets that they may have been struggling to get. And then we teach how once you hit those performance targets, it starts leading to organizational profitability because now you're reducing the cost, you're increasing efficiency, you're improving product quality.
That's awesome. And you said that's part of the book here that we're seeing, Engage, Lead, Deliver as well?
No, but it's part of our organization. So if people can reach out to us at DKBindustries.com or DarylKBryant.com, and we can tell them more about the Winning with Excellence system and the $1 million challenge that we have associated with that.
All right, good. Well, Daryll, this is I'm still kind of shocked by some of these stories, but they're really great illustrations of why safety is the top priority in terms of enabling success overall. So thank you so much for sharing that. Hey, as you say, it's okay to slow down, to double check for safety. It's okay to enable everybody to have safety top of mind, even if it means missing your targets and goals, because ultimately that will lead to better results in terms of employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and obviously revenue growth. So, all right, Daryll, we're going to wrap it up here today. You have any questions, please let us know. And if you need any additional resources around continuous improvement, please contact Daryll at dkbindustries.com, or you can check out Safety Chain's resources at safetychain.com. So I want to thanks again, Daryll, you're amazing. Please come back. We'll chat offline to have you come back to our show. And thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. Take care, everyone.